Hey bookworms!
I'm BookMouse.
And I'm BookKitty. And this is
our BookNook.
Because we made some changes and we're doing a book every other week, this week we are doing our top 3 favorite series, which was really hard to decide.
Well, and honestly, I found 3, but I think it's going to be 1, 1, 2.
Okay, good. But it was top 3. So
it is my top 3. I just, when I got down to it, I was like, no, they're both 1.
I wonder what they are. When deciding what your favorite series are, some people just know, and some people have to think back. I really had to think about it. Like, I had my first 2, I knew what I wanted, and then my third one, I've been racking my brain for
almost a week.
And I just figured it out like 5 minutes ago.
I had my first 2 before we left last filming, and I had my third one by the time I got home. So, but it was easy because I've always had my favorite series. Ones I go back and reread, and then try to push on other people to read.
Yeah. Well, what is your number 3?
Number 3 is going to be the Spellsinger series by Alan Dean Foster. It's a much older series. I remember first finding it towards the end of high school. We are not telling you when that was, but of course if you look at the copyright date, you're going to know. But the first book is simply called Spellsinger. And then it's a series of books about the adventures of these people. Magic, end-of-the-world events, a horny otter named Mudge. It rolls all around poor John Tom, who is this college kid having a little recreational activity in his room.
And none of us have ever done that.
And because his mind is loose and relaxed, he is susceptible to a wizard turtle's magic. The turtle is desperately looking for an engineer to help him with what he sees as a forthcoming danger to his world. Well, he latches onto John Tom, brings him into his world. You're talking about a college kid who doesn't know anything, who's all of a sudden got a talking otter threatening his life. And it goes from there. And I love it.
How many times have you read this series?
The whole thing? 4 or 5. The first 3 books?
Sounds like a favorite.
I've lost count. So, what did you come up with for number 3?
My number 3. I ended up going with the Night Huntress series by Janine Frost. It is about a woman, and honestly, right now, I forget her name. I know it's in my favorites, but I read so many, I get characters mixed up. But anyway, the main character is a female, and she's half vampire, half human. In some books, they have different names for it, and they do have a name for it in there, but I'm forgetting which book is which, and I don't want to misspeak. But she's half vampire, half human, and she's a fucking badass. Like, maybe a little bit too much of a badass. You know, you were saying on the one series how, like, the beginning was good, but then she just started fucking everything.
Yeah.
It's not quite like that. I mean, she's pretty set on who she's interested in, but it does kind of start to lose some of that steam a little bit. But for me, I just really enjoy the, honestly, it's the world building that does it for me in that one. It's not much different from our world. It's more like a magical realism type, you know, vampires in our world type thing. But I don't know, it just, I love to see what authors do with their version of vampires. I've always been obsessed with vampires.
You've always been obsessed with
And that's the filter I look at things through. And 2 out of the 3 top 3 series are vampire series. There are so many things about vampires that contradict from story to story to story.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that don't flow together. There's a lot of things that are different. I like to see what authors do with all of that information. And if they add in their own lore into it.
Okay.
And I think she does a little bit of that as well. She adds a little bit of her own little pizzazz to the half, because I mean, a lot of vampire stories can't have kids, no. So like you wouldn't have a half vampire, half human. But in this case, that's not the case. So it makes you want to figure out how
How
is that a thing? Yeah, so that's my number 3, is the Night Huntress series by Janine Frost, starting with right here, Halfway to the Grave.
Yes, Halfway to the Grave.
I think that's the first one, if I have them in the proper order, which I should. You should.
So that was your number 3. What did you decide on for number 2?
Me. Number 2 is well loved by many, many, many people.
Okay.
Harry Potter, of course.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh my god. Okay. So I fucking love Harry Potter. Now, Harry Potter found me at a very weird time in my life. I was a little bit older than Harry was when the first book came out. My brother was about Harry's age. He's a year and a half younger than me. So I was around the same age as some of these students, which is perfect for coming across it. But I was also at a period of transition in terms of my reading. Up until this point, I had only really been reading the girly stuff, Sweet Valley High and Nancy Drew, and I can't even remember all of them. The Animorphs, I fucking love the Animorphs. But I wasn't into fantasy yet. I was actually very much against fantasy for the reason that we mentioned before. My dad was really into fantasy, but I always saw those awful book covers and was completely turned off to the genre. And then Harry Potter made me find the genre. It made me kind of dip my toes in, because it is a bit of it is fantasy,
Yeah.
And it's funny, I didn't even read the first book until the first movie came out. Everybody else read it. My brother read it, my mom read it, my dad read it, my grandma read it. And I was just like, no, I'm not into it. And then the family was going to the movie, so I went and saw it. I was like, okay, I need to do this now. And I was hooked.
Yeah.
I always find something, whether it's the book or the movie, I always find something that I didn't see before.
Okay.
That is my number 2, Harry Potter. Yeah.
Okay. I now have to choose. So I have 2 that I was holding at number 1. But if I have to pick, it's going to sound like blasphemy. Mercedes Lackey's going to have to go to number 2. Mercedes Lackey's Valdemar series. And I know I have talked, I don't know how many of our postings about the Valdemar series. But I love them. And there's so many books in them. And depending on whose character I'm interested in at the time is which set of 3 I pick up and read again. And like I said, she's got world building. She's got rules for the magic. It's not just this guy's super powerful. There are rules. There are consequences. There are whole societies. And she explains their societies. I love it. I love Mercedes Lackey. She has several series that she writes, and I read them all. But this one of all of her series is my absolute favorite.
Tell you what, if I ever meet her at a writer's con, I'll FaceTime you or something and get something signed.
But yes, that is my number 2. That one.
That really leaves me hanging on what number 1 is, because I really thought that was going to be your number 1.
A waffle. I told you I had 1 and 1A.
I know.
But if we're going to be fair, we have to give it 1, 2, 3. So that was my number 2.
Okay. So, what's it going to be?
All right, number 1. One of the first books my grandmother ever gave me, and she's given me hundreds over the years before she passed. One of the first books she ever gave me was by this author. Fell in love with the author, and then proceeded to read everything by this author I could get my hands on. I still do.
The suspense is killing me.
The author's name is Anne McCaffrey.
I should not be surprised.
Dragon Riders of Pern.
Oh, okay.
I love what Anne McCaffrey did with the books. I love the world she's created, the society she's created. I love the different halls, the peoples, the dragons, the dragon riders. I fell in love. I wanted to be a dragon rider, and I knew I was going to cry myself to sleep one night when I realized, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. These are wonderful books. They really are. The first one I read, and I think it's actually the first actual book, is Dragon Singer. Chronologically, it's not the first book, but I started with Dragon Singer, I met Manali, and then I was hooked. And there's like 3 books for Manali's story. I'm in love with them. And then there's so many books in the series, and they're all so good. And you meet Lessa and Flar and Fnorn, and you meet Manali and Master Harper Robinson. I can hear his voice. For some reason in my head, his voice is like, I don't know, Morgan Freeman-like. You know? It's so distinctive. I can hear his melodic voice in my head because he is the master harper of Pern. And just all the trials they go through and everything they're struggling with. And then later down the line, no hints, you find out even more about their world. She writes a standalone book. Or wrote a standalone. She wrote a standalone book, All the Wares of Pern. And it just, you learn so much. And they're all interconnected and interrelated, and you feel for these people.
That's very similar to my number one.
Oh.
My number one is also super interconnected. References from one book to the other, timeline crossovers.
Okay.
But to be fair, we all already know what my favorite series is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of guessed from last week what it was going to be.
Number one is most definitely the Archana series by Lindsay Sands. I've said this almost as many times as you've talked about Mercedes Lackey's Valdemar books.
Yes.
It is right here in the middle of my bookshelf. Well, at least middle for like my height. It's a perfect height for me. I'm still like 10 books short.
And if you want a complete list of the books, she actually put up a collage of all the books in order. But they are good books. I have read a lot of those too.
What I like so much about the series, what I find myself telling people when I tell people about the series is, yes, it's a vampire romance series, technically. But it doesn't fit under the normal vampire romance gag-thon, you know? It's more like...
Yeah.
First of all, the vampires aren't cliche. They're scientific in nature. They're descended from Atlantis. She put a whole world behind them as if she were making a whole new supernatural creature.
Yes.
She didn't just take all the vampire shit and go, this is it. No. And as I previously mentioned, that's something that I really enjoy, is to see what authors are going to do with their version of vampires. Which is why I still don't hate Twilight. May not be my favorite, but I don't hate it because it's her version. And that's okay. That's the fun of writing, is if you can get somebody to publish your book, as Twilight obviously did, all the more power to you. Like, write your world, share it with everybody. The books include everything from romance, yes, to action and mystery and internal struggle, external struggle, family ties. They really delve into family ties.
Oh,
the
yeah.
entire series is...
But the whole thing's not dark, doom, and gloom.
It's centered
either.
on her family. No, it's not. There's
there's
and there's births, and there's...
And there's one or two books that are tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my favorite book out of this whole series is The Accidental Vampire. And that book is freaking hilarious. I mean,
it is really funny, actually.
from beginning to end...
The accidental vampire literally becomes a vampire by accident. If I'm not mistaken...
She was in a bus accident.
There was like a car accident or bus accident, and the blood just happened to contaminate her, and that vampire had no idea, so she just goes on just randomly becoming a vampire, and then the whole town knows, and then the town puts out a classifieds ad for her going, this nice vampire needs a vampire lover, and then all of these people that run the Archana, like, conglomerate, which basically supplies all the blood and kind of like rules over the vampires a little bit, and the whole you can't feed off of people unless it's an emergency and all of that. Now they're going, what the fuck? Who's advertising this? And so a couple of them will go and see if she's really a vampire or if it's just a gimmick and this whole thing, and then therefore take appropriate action. And it's just really funny how it all plays out.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
I love how Lindsay Sands writes. It's straightforward, but it also gets you to think. Like, I don't know, there's just been some things in there I've had to be like, I wonder how I would react to that.
I have to admit, the series in and of itself, I do enjoy it too.
And one of my favorite things about it is how she crosses over. The one that sticks out to me is Marguerite. Marguerite is one of the aunts of the family. And she has her own book.
She has her own
She's
book.
in most of the books.
She's in most of the books, too.
Because she's a very, very central character to the family, not just to the books. But she has her own book during which she gets kidnapped, which I won't go into detail on, but she gets kidnapped, and that is kind of the inciting incident for her novel. But there's another novel in the series, like, not even like before or after novel. I mean, like a couple books away from it. And I was reading it, and they're asking, the characters are asking each other, has anybody heard from Aunt Marguerite yet? no, we still haven't, and it's referring to that book, and she's first going missing. I'm like, that was the first time I noticed that there was major crossovers. I'm like, this is fucking cool. Oh my god, I gotta reread this book now, and I gotta reread this one.
And if you just want to pick out one and check it out, just pick one.
Yeah.
And check it out.
Anywhere. They're all their individual stories, but they all link together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those are our top three favorite series.
As of right now.
Yes.
But I challenge you to introduce me to a new series and try to derail one of my top three.
Oh, yeah. Let us know in the comments if you've got your favorite series. Maybe we haven't heard of it yet, or we forgot about it and would like to revisit it and go, oh, yeah, remember?
Or maybe one you like that you think might be up one of our alleys, especially if it's vampire related. Send it my way. Thanks for joining us.
Join us next week. We are going to be taking a look at a New York Times bestseller neither of us knew about. We just picked it and decided to run with it. We're going to be checking out Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nung.
Sorry, it's a little hard to pronounce on the last name there.
Join us. It's going to be a good read.
I'm really excited for it because, I know nothing about it.
I don't either. This is an up-and-coming author.
And don't forget to check the description below where we will list where you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon.
Become a patron for as little as $3.
Join us for all sorts of fun shit, like early access to our weekly videos,
behind-the-scenes footage, shout-outs, and bloopers.
And if you become a patron at any tier, you gain access to our exclusive all-new live chat community.
Don't forget to hit that big red button and ring the bell so that you always get notified when we post new footage.
We post videos every week on Mondays at 2 p.m. Central and sometimes extras on Tuesdays or Saturdays.
That's all we've got for today. This has been BookMouse.
And I'm BookKitty. And we are now signing off. That was a tough one. That third one, man. That got me. I can't believe it took me a week to come up with that.